Hey guys, welcome back to another video on my channel. If you're new to this channel, please subscribe, like my video, comment down all your suggestions in the section below, and check out all my other content once you're done watching this video. And in today's video, we're going to be completing a map, a 2024 election map based on Donald Trump's best case scenario. And this is his best case scenario, so this is the best he can possibly do realistically, not something that's very much impossible, but something that's realistic and the best possible performance that he could have against Vice President Kamala Harris. And just keep in mind, and this is not my official prediction, so just remember that as this video goes by, this is not my official prediction. This is just Donald Trump's best case scenario. And in this scenario, I would think that he would win the popular vote. Right now, the popular vote is Harris plus 1.9, the exact same as what it was in 2016 against Clinton at this same time in history. And then obviously in 2020 on September 21st, it was Biden plus 6.5. So let's say that Harris is up 1.9 nationally, and let's say that that's completely correct. We have already filled out a map based on that, and you can check that out. But let's just say the polls are as accurate as 2020, and that would probably be Trump's best case scenario in the popular vote. Let's say the popular vote is off by 3%. So Donald Trump would win the popular vote by around 1. And I would put that as his popular vote margin, around 1 to 2 points. And this map is going to be filled out based on that popular vote margin. And in 2020, as we all remember, he lost by 4.5 percentage points, the popular vote, 51.3 to 46.8. And he ended up losing the Electoral College by a combined 40,000 votes in the three closest states of Georgia, Wisconsin, and Arizona. So we can see from that how favored the Electoral College is for the former president. To support the idea that Republicans are just naturally favored in the Electoral College is based on this right here. And this is made by Nate Silver, the same guy who created 538. And I mentioned this little chart and graphic in a previous video that you can also check out after this video. I'll put that right now on the top of your screen. But getting to this right now, we see right now the popular vote is between 1 to 2. So it would be in this column. And Harris would only have a 37 percentage point chance of winning the election. Donald Trump would have a 61% chance of winning that election. So if we bring that down to here, between 1 and 2 percentage points of Republicans winning, so Trump would have a 99.5 percentage point chance of winning the election. And that's why the Electoral College is so favored to them, because Democrats need to win that popular vote between 2 and 3, or maybe even more, to even have a majority chance of winning. And even still, even if they win between 2, 3, 4, Republicans still have about less than a third chance of winning. So for them to really win, they would have to win by, the similar margin as 2020 by around 4.5, and that would still barely give him that Electoral College. Trump could have flipped these 40,000 voters, and he would be in the White House right now. So that's where that's at. And in any scenario where it's Trump's best case scenario, he would be winning the popular vote in this range right here between 1 and 2. So that would grant him pretty much a 99% chance of winning the Electoral College. And that's what we're going to go at here. Let's fill out our safe states on this map for Kamala Harris, the states that she will still win by 12 points or over. California, obviously one of the most Democratic states, as well as the state of Washington. She won it by 20. She'll still win it by a safe margin. The state of Hawaii will get a lot closer either way, but she'll still win it by over 12. Back on the East Coast, we have the states of Maryland, DC. We're going to have the state of Massachusetts, Vermont, Maine's 1st district still staying in that safe margin. Going down some of these East Coast states, we hate the state of Delaware is going to fall under that 12-point margin. We don't have Joe Biden in that race, so he will not have effects. New Jersey, obviously, and then we have Rhode Island and Connecticut, which will also fall below that 12-point margin, just barely. I'm actually going to put the state of Vermont in that safe margin, just because I would think it would be barely over that 12-point margin. But this is all the Democrats have over that 12 percentage point margin. And then for Trump, we have a huge number of states. We're going to have all of these states that we're very used to putting in that safe column that I'm going to put very quickly. States up in the deep south. The states of Iowa and Ohio will be going in that safe margin as usual. Maine's 2nd congressional district. And then 2 more states will be joining that safe column, the states of Texas and Florida. In a Trump best case scenario where he's winning the popular vote by between 1 and 2, he is going to win Texas and Florida by a safe margin. He's going to win them by around 12 points. And in most people's predictions now, they do have Texas and Florida being between a 7 and 9, maybe 10-point win for Trump. So him gaining a couple more points is not so far-fetched in this scenario. And this isn't something so unrealistic given the fact that these states are going to trend right as compared to the country because of those favorable trends in those states, especially the state of Florida, which saw humongous trends in southern Florida. A majority of the population is down here. So we're going to see something like that happen again in 2024. And in that best case scenario, he is going to win Florida by a safe margin. And now let's get to our likely states. So these are states that are going to go between 6 and 12 in each respective candidate. Oregon will be around a 11-point win for Kamala Harris. Colorado, being so left-leaning and trending so far to the left, will still be in that likely column. He'll win it by 6 to 12. Illinois will also fall in that column, as well as Delaware, New Jersey, Connecticut, and the state of New York. New York is one of those states that I would usually never put in that likely column in any scenario. But once again, we've seen polling that supports this. The most recent New York Times Siena poll, which is the gold standard for New York State, has Kamala Harris only up 12 to 13 in the state. So in her worst case scenario, she'll be winning the state of New York by between 6 and 12. Trump's likely states, he will probably win the state of North Carolina easily in that likely column, as well as the state of Georgia also in that likely column. Right now, he does lead both in the polls. He leads North Carolina by 0.1 and leads Georgia by a surprising 1.7. So given his best case scenario, he will win those two states by over 6 points, probably around 6 to 8. And there are a couple people that already put North Carolina and Georgia in that likely column. And I definitely think in this scenario, they would be pushed very heavily. North Carolina, we've been seeing some very, very good trends for the former president. If I want to try to find some of those early numbers here, as we can see here in North Carolina, those early numbers are looking a lot better for Republicans than 4 years ago, and they've been coming out in larger numbers than previously. We can check this graph over here and see over time, even the Democrat share has been going down over the past few weeks. The Republican share has been going up. The total requests are around 200,000, a lot lower than this number right here. This is the number that you really want to pay attention to, the 2020 absentee request compared to the 2024. It was 1.4 million. Right now it is 206,000. It is a lot more white than we're used to. It's 71.5% white so far and 10% black. Back in 2020, it was a lot higher, black 18% and 65% white. Going down these party lines, we can see Democrats were at 46% in 2020. Now they're at 37%, so down quite a lot. Republicans have gone up from 19 to 23. So that's something good to point out when making these predictions in Trump's best case scenario and even in just a regular scenario. As I said with Georgia, also early good numbers looking good, polls looking good. I would say it's in that likely margin. The last state that I'm going to put in the likely margin for Donald Trump is the state of Arizona. And Arizona is another state where early numbers are looking good. Polls are also looking good for him. They've been hit really hard by that border, so that will affect a lot of how they voted. And the state of Arizona would not be competitive at all in Trump's best case scenario. Let's go to the more competitive states now. And with all the likely states filled out, Trump is at 262 and Harris is at 191. To fill out Harris's lean states, we would have to go to the state of New Mexico to begin with. The state of New Mexico had voted for Joe Biden by 11 points in 2020. It didn't see a relatively strong shift in either direction. This state hasn't really changed much politically over the past 15 years. And we're going to see some trends to the right regardless. But in that best case scenario, we're going to see trends that exceed expectations, especially Hispanics, because they make up a majority of the state electorate and population. So in that scenario, Trump would lose the state by between 2 and 6%. And that would be the only state that Harris wins in that lean column. Donald Trump would win the states of Nevada, Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania, all in that lean column. All of the states that usually would be in that tilt column would be moved a couple points up into that lean column. And the states are already very close in the polls. Pennsylvania is a 0.7 race, Wisconsin a 1-point race, Michigan a 1.7, and Nevada a 0.2. All of them almost under 1 point, except for Michigan, which is the strongest state for Kamala Harris. But nonetheless, in these scenarios where Donald Trump would be exceeding all of our expectations and in which he does overperform those polls, similar to what I said in the beginning of the video, he would win all of these states by lean margins. And these are realistic margins based on previous errors and based on data itself. These are not outlandish at all. And even though I do think they're not going to happen unless something drastically changes, there is still always a chance of them happening. And if Donald Trump wins the popular vote in any scenario by over 1 percentage point, this is the map that we're probably going to see. We're going to see something very similar to this. So this is good going over this map in general. But going now to the tilt states, and the tilt states are going to be the closest states between 0 and 2 percentage points. And you can see it's very different. We're going to have the states of Minnesota, Virginia, New Hampshire, Maine at large, and Nebraska second. It's going to completely change the dynamic. And by this time, Trump would have already won that election. Still in Trump's best case scenario, I do think Democrats will slightly hold on to the state of Minnesota by less than a point. Hillary Clinton won the state by 1.5. He'll do a little bit better than 2016, but still the state as a whole, I think, will stay in that Democratic column by a very narrow margin. It hasn't even voted Republican since the 1970s. It didn't even vote for Ronald Reagan when he won every single other state in 1984. And this is a state that I think will stay with Democrats mainly because of the Minneapolis-St. Paul area. Very favorable city for Democrats, and I think they're still going to continue to gain there. Meanwhile, Republicans will gain in the rest of the state. But a state that I do see flipping in Trump's best case scenario is the state of Virginia. And Virginia is one of those states where I do not think will flip to Trump in a normal scenario. But in his best case scenario, I do think he would flip the state of Virginia, that be it by a less than half a point margin. It would be probably the closest of close margins. And we have seen some good polls recently that came out of Virginia. We had a poll from a very reputable pollster that had Biden up by a very large amount in 2020. I believe over 10 percentage points, which is larger than the margin that he won it by. And now they have it at a 1-point race for Harris. Harris is only up by 1 percentage point. And Virginia has already started voting early in person. They've gotten quite a lot of turnout. We're seeing a lot of turnout in the areas that are expected, like these Democrat stronghold areas. But a lot of news is coming out that we're also seeing a lot of turnout in a lot of these rural counties. So we're just going to have to wait and see until we get some official data on who actually is turning out. But right now, that would be his best case scenario in the state of Virginia. Best case scenario for him in all of these remaining states would be also in that tilt column. He would win all these by less than a point as well. Nebraska second, he had won in 2016, so that already would be giving it to him just based off of that. The states of New Hampshire and Maine are the most elastic states in the Northeast. And these two states have a large majority of independents. Most of their voters are independent voters. They have a great tendency to vote for Republicans. Maine has a Republican senator. New Hampshire has a Republican governor. Same thing with Vermont. They have a Republican governor. But New Hampshire and Maine are not so much locked in by the party, but locked in much more with the person. They are very elastic. They generally do not like incumbent parties that much. So that's why they swing harder to the opposite direction when an incumbent or the same party is running for re-election. And I'd say in that scenario, these two states would flip in Trump's column. And that would be our map right here for Trump's best case scenario, 332 to 206. That is going to be the map, and that is going to be today's video. So thank you guys so much for watching. Please subscribe, like my video, put out your comments and suggestions, and let me know if you believe that this map would be realistic in Trump's best case scenario. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll check you guys out in the next one.